everyone. My name is Lizzie and I'm a lead data engineer at Kasna, which is part of Mantle Group's House of Brands. At Kasna, I solve problems and build solutions using Google Cloud technology to help our customers harness the power of their data. I also volunteer for the Good Data Institute, which I will touch on more shortly. And today, I will be speaking about data engineering for social good. It is no secret that data and analytics can help organizations better understand their customers, drive operational efficiencies, and make more informed business decisions. However, not-for-profits are often left behind in the pursuit of data-driven insights, which can really lessen the impact that they're capable of making. In this talk, we will discuss some of those challenges that not-for-profits face when trying to build their data capability, and we'll also explore a use case to explore how some really simple and cost-effective solutions can actually be really effective in helping not-for-profits increase their impact and drive social good. The Good Data Institute, or GDI for short, is a network of socially minded data professionals who use their professional skills to help not-for-profits build data capability and increase their impact. GDI is essentially a bridge between the not-for-profit world and the world of data professionals who want to use their skills to do social good. I got involved in GDI back in 2019, and since then we've grown to over 150 volunteers across Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, and we've delivered over 50 projects to not-for-profits globally. The sorts of projects that we get involved in are quite varied in nature. So we might develop a data strategy for a not-for-profit who's just starting out in their data journey and might want some guidance. Or we might develop a specific piece of one-off analysis for a not-for-profit to help them make an important business decision. Or we might actually develop an artifact like a model or a dashboard which we hand over to that not-for-profit to be sort of used on an ongoing basis. And in these third sorts of projects, some form of basic data engineering is usually required in order to provision the data. So why is there a gap between the for-profit and not-for-profit world when it comes to building data capability? Well, there are really three key factors at play here. And the first is time. So not-for-profits are often more time and resource constrained than their for-profit counterparts. And in this environment, it's really easy for data and analytics to fall by the wayside in favour of focusing on more sort of key and core functions. The second is know-how. So often not-for-profits lack the data talent that is required to build a data capability. And a really big factor at play here is the really hot labour market, which makes it a lot harder for not-for-profits to attract and retain that data talent. And then the third point is data strategy. So often not-for-profits don't have one and they're not too sure where to begin. Developing a sound data strategy involves a unique blend of commercial and technical skills, which, again, due to those market factors, can make it really difficult for not-for-profits to tap into. So these challenges give rise to a unique set of priorities that GDI must keep in mind when we're engaging with not-for-profits. And the first is value for money. Because not-for-profits are typically cost-constrained, it's really important that anything that we develop for them represents good value for money and is not cost-prohibitive. So because of this, we really favour low or no-cost services, and we also take advantage of the many schemes and plans that different software and cloud vendors offer to help level the playing field for not-for-profits. Second is simplicity. So often not-for-profits come to GDI with little to no data capability, and in these cases, it's really important for us to just start simple and help them lay a foundation, which will get them started on their data journey. And then third is maintainability, and yeah, this is quite a big one. So Often not-for-profits don't have those data people to maintain an overly complex system, and so it's really important that anything that we actually deliver and hand over can be maintained by the team that they have and the people that they have. And so for that reason, we really favour low or no ops solutions. So let's dive into a case study from a real GDI project to explore how some of these competing priorities can be balanced. So last year I had the pleasure of working with a not-for-profit called One Tilt, which are based in the States. And One Tilt's mission is to create more equitable workplace cultures where people feel more connected and valued. One Tilt do this by running a range of workshops on diversity, equity, inclusion for different teams or leaders or managers. And One Tilt gather workshop feedback through surveys, which they send out to attendees. So they've already started their data collection process, but they really lack the skill and experience to perform the analysis on these surveys themselves, and so they engaged GDI to help. And they also wanted GDI to help them create a bit of a framework to make the data collection and analysis process more streamlined going forward so that they could get to the insights quicker. One Tilt's entire organisation was based on Google Workspace, and they used Google Forms as their survey tool, and they collected the results in Google Sheets. And they had multiple different versions of surveys for the different workshop offerings they had, so like Session, Fellowship, and Affinity, which were different workshop types. And they also had different versions of each of these over time as they'd kind of tweaked and refined the questions, and so there were lots of different sort of schemas in those result sets. And they'd also started doing a bit of ad hoc analysis on the Google Sheets directly, but this wasn't too extensive yet. So this current state system gave rise to the following pain points. Number one is fractured insights. So because there was no way of really consolidating those result sets across the different workshop categories, there was no way to actually compare results across the different survey categories or across time. And even if One Tilt did want to do this, there'd be a lot of data cleansing and data wrangling required in order to sort of reconcile those different schemas together. Second is inaccessible insights. So because they were doing their analysis directly in Google Sheets, this was really hidden away. It wasn't very searchable or discoverable. And so any insights that they were deriving were just not being used properly. And then there was also no repeatability. So if someone wanted to get a slightly different kind of cut of the data, they'd really have to go in and start from scratch. And then third is missed insights. So One Tilt were neglecting to analyse the really information-rich free text fields, which made up quite a large portion of their surveys. And in doing so, they were only really focusing on the data that was easy to categorise and score. So they were missing out on a lot of insight there. So as part of our solution, first of all, we created a survey standard for their surveys going forward, which really standardised the questions in their formats, which would make it kind of easier to compare across the workshop categories going forward. And we also cleansed and consolidated all of those results sets into a single data set for analysis. We also built a bunch of Google Data Studio dashboards to help make those insights more accessible to people across One Tilt. And we included a whole bunch of filters so that different users could slice and dice the data to answer their specific questions. And we also used natural language processing to perform keyword analysis and also bigram analysis, which is just analysis of significant sort of pairs of words in order to extract even further insight from those survey results. In order to implement this improved solution, we considered two options, and the first was to actually use Google Cloud BigQuery to basically leverage SQL in order to kind of cleanse and combine those survey results, which could then be fed to Google Data Studio for analysis. And in this option, we could use BigQuery external tables, which would let us connect directly to the Google Sheets in Google Drive. And then we could just build a consolidated view on top of those external tables to union all those result sets together and cleanse and combine them for analysis in the dashboards. And we could also use Google Cloud Functions, which would execute the Python script that we'd developed for our natural language processing. And those results could then be saved to an intermediate table and analysed in Google Data Studio. So some of the benefits of this solution are, with the kind of scheduling requirement that we had, it would be completely free under the Google Cloud free tier, because we are working with pretty small data volumes and fairly frequently changing data. And also because we use a view, we really ensure data freshness because we're not kind of introducing any batch process. So any data that lands in the Google Sheets will flow all the way through to the dashboards without any processing. Some of the cons of this solution are it would require OneTilt to set up a GCP project and a billing account, which, because they're quite a small org and don't have too much data experience, might be prohibitive. And also, there is a process to onboard any new surveys that come through, which would be fairly infrequent and is also a fairly simple process, just setting up a new external table. But because OneTilt didn't have that BigQuery experience, again, it might be prohibitive. And we did look at automating this process as well, but the integration between Google Drive and Google Cloud wasn't quite there to allow us to do this in a really kind of seamless way, and it seemed like sort of something that could potentially be broken, and they wouldn't know, I guess, how to maintain or fix it. So we thought a manual process would be better in this case. The second option that we considered is basically just having everything on Google Workspace and leveraging Google Colab Notebooks, which is just a free Jupyter Notebook service, in order to do the data processing. So we could have a script which does the consolidating of the result sets and also the NLP, and we could just run that in a script, and everything could be kept in Google Workspace. Some of the benefits of this solution are it is entirely free, and it is also centralized on Google Workspace, which OneTilt are already comfortable with. And there's also no process to onboard new surveys as they come in, because those would just get picked up automatically by our Colab script. Some of the cons are this does introduce some sort of batching into the process, because we do have that notebook which performs the consolidation of results. So as new results flow into the Google Sheets, they will not be available in the dashboard until you run the script. And also, we couldn't find any sort of easy and seamless way to automate the scheduling of the notebooks. So that would introduce a manual step into the process, which of course isn't ideal either. So after a bit of weighing up and discussion, we did decide to go with option 2 for OneTilt. The primary reason being they were comfortable with Google Workspace and would prefer to just have that framework centralized there rather than opening up a Google account and having that extra administrative overhead. And also the process to sort of set up new surveys with the external tables might be a bridge too far for them because they lacked a data team. So with option 2, even with the small inconvenience of having to occasionally trigger a notebook, this was far outweighed by the benefit they gained from having this new framework that basically streamlined the process from data collection all the way through to analysis and providing them these brand new dashboards to analyze. And so with this solution, for the first time ever, they could basically track the impact that they were having on different cohorts of attendees over time. And then they could also track the satisfaction scores between different workshops and over time to kind of help figure out what they could do better in their workshop offerings and basically improve their offerings. So this was really valuable information for them. So what did we learn from this engagement? Again, I can pull out 3 key points. So the first is, in projects like this one, where we are handing over a dashboard or a model to be used on an ongoing basis, the data engineering is really key, and making that maintainable is really key, because, as we all know, without well-structured and quality data, there can't be any analytics. And second is to start small and build. So starting small lets you start to prove out the value of a data capability without having to have too much investment from the not-for-profit. And that might be enough to help them make data more central to their data strategy and start to prioritise it more. And then they may make their first data hire or train someone up internally, and then that will make more sophisticated solutions possible going forward. And then third is a little goes a long way. So as we've seen here, super simple and cost-effective solutions can actually be really powerful in helping not-for-profits increase their impact and drive social good. So yeah, thanks very much for listening, and yeah, I'll now invite questions.
Hi. On your final slide, you mentioned having well-structured quality data was good. I think you talked a little bit about that in your surveys. Was there other areas that you found that you needed quality structured data?
Do you mean just like at GDI in general, or on this particular project, or? Yeah,
and on this particular project, like, how did you work with the client to ensure that quality?
Yeah, so the way that we ensured quality was basically, sort of setting up that survey with them and that kind of the survey standard to make sure that, we were asking the right questions and that there was some consistency, across the different surveys, so they could use this standard to kind of design all of their surveys. And then we'd just sort of set up like a zone in Workspace, which was like a no-touch zone. So, all the results from those surveys flowed into that, and then went through our framework to the dashboards, so that there was kind of like no risk of, I guess, data kind of contamination or manipulation. And then, in our scripts itself, we'd also kind of perform a few data quality checks and have a bit of logging in there. But the extent of sort of what we could do there was somewhat limited, I guess, based on their knowledge of the data and like how much power they'd have to fix things. So it's a real kind of trade-off between making something kind of maintainable going forward, but also not too burdensome.
Well, if there's no more questions, can we maybe just have one final round of applause for Lizzie?